In 1812, Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry redrew the congressional districts of his state to ensure a majority for the Democratic Republicans of Massachusetts. Soon, the Boston Sentinel saw the new district and ridiculed it, deeming it the gerrymander, a portmanteau of Gerry's name and the salamander, which they claimed it bore a resemblance to. This is the origin of the term gerrymandering, a practice that has been criticized by many. Partisan gerrymandering, especially in Maryland, North Carolina, and Texas, have often virtually disenfranchised minority parties, and some say it poses a threat to the integrity of our democracy.
The definition of gerrymandering is essentially manipulation of political boundaries for partisan or other gain. I've heard someone say it's Lord of the Flies on steroids, and I think that's an appropriate way to think about it. And it's a uniquely American flaw, some would say.
These practices are referred to as packing and cracking. Packing is taking a large amount of people from one party and shoving them into a district that doesn't make a lot of sense geographically. Cracking is when politicians take what is normally a solid group and split it up into many different districts as to prevent them from having the presence they normally would in politics. Gerrymandering has been a hot topic in our courts for years, and the problem has even risen to the Supreme Court several times. Constitutional law attorney Miguel Estrada had this to say about the Supreme Court and gerrymandering.
For like a long time, we've been playing footsie with Justice Kennedy on this issue. Whether it was the 14th Amendment, it was the First Amendment, the theory that Justice Kennedy kept sort of trying to like noodle with was whether if you suffered because you're co-religionists in your party were not getting elected in a different part of the state, whether you had a free association claim under the First Amendment. Which was a theory that, if you thought about it, really had no limits, because then you could sue about people who share your party affiliation in a different state.
And it's still happening to this day. In June of 2019, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 to prevent a challenge to gerrymandering. Here's what Justice Kagan had to say about that.
I wrote a dissent which is obviously very different this year. I wrote a dissent in the gerrymandering case, which is, I didn't really pull my punches about the importance that I thought that decision had to our political system and to the way we govern ourselves. And, there's no part of me that's ever going to become accepting or of the decision made, essentially that the courts shouldn't get involved in gerrymandering, no matter how bad it is and no matter how destructive of our political system it is.
It is in the best interest of politicians to continue supporting gerrymandering. They have seen that the courts are unwilling to do anything about the issue and are going headfirst into gerrymandering.
To try to avoid creating a racial gerrymander. And the best example of this is what happened in North Carolina after their districts were found to be a racial gerrymander. They said, all right, we're going to draw new district lines. We're not going to look at any racial data. And then David Lewis, the representative in charge of redistricting, got up and he made this statement. I acknowledge freely that this will be a political gerrymander. We want to make clear that we're going to use political data in drawing this map. It is to gain partisan advantage on this map. I am making clear that our intent is to use the political data to have partisan advantage. What sounds like it should be an indication of liability is the defense, right? It's all about party. It has nothing to do with the race.
This is Connie Morella, a Maryland congressional representative who is gerrymandered out of office. We asked her some questions about the current state of gerrymandering.
The biggest problems we have in America. It has helped to develop tribalism, where people are one party, they have a safe seat, they don't have to worry about reaching out to those who may be of another party or a different persuasion. Gerrymandering is a problem for the citizenry. And Alexander Hamilton, there is a big sign in the Capitol quoting Alexander Hamilton, "In this house, the people govern." well, with gerrymandering, the people don't govern. It's the politicians that do the governing. So it is really quite unfair.
What steps do you think can be taken to stop this monumental issue in today's government?
I think the steps begin right at home. I think every state should have an independent commission that looks at redistricting, following up with town meetings, so the public are also not only apprised, but have some input in terms of what's going to happen. And I think that's the fairest way of doing it.